All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us here on this snowy day. We really appreciate you all taking the time out to come out for this very, very important press conference as us, as Growing Together Connecticut, roll out our legislative agenda for 2025. Yeah, y'all can clap for that. Just to let you know, Growing Together Connecticut is a consortium of over 45 organizations statewide working collectively to break down barriers to affordable housing in resource-rich communities and spur equitable policies and investments in higher poverty communities. We have a great consortium of organizations that are working with us, and our steering committee consists of the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, CONCAN, the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, and the Connecticut Fair Housing Center, CSH, and the Elm Cities Communities, as well as the NAACP, Open Communities Alliance, and PT Partners. This steering committee has come together collectively to come up with this legislative agenda and policy that you will hear in just a few minutes. This year, our theme for Growing Together covers three things: building homes, keeping homes, and supporting families. And you will hear from each of those different topics around our policies and what we planned on advocating for this session. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Erin Boggs, the Executive Director of Open Communities Alliance, and she'll talk about building homes. Erin?
Thank you, Kirk, and thank you to everyone here today, especially our legislators. We are really grateful for your support and for your time with us today. In this time of great uncertainty, there are still things we can do to ensure that Connecticut residents, many of whom are already struggling, can weather the storm and grow together, not only to survive, but thrive. You will hear from other speakers today about many of the other agenda items that we have. I'm going to talk about how we can build more homes, more beautiful and affordable homes here in Connecticut with a proposal called Towns Take the Lead zoning reform. When it comes to building homes, four facts are foundational. Connecticut is the most housing constrained state in the country. The most housing constrained state in the country. 92% of the residential land area in Connecticut is zoned for single family homes, and generally on very large lots. If we don't allow other kinds of denser housing, from duplexes to apartment communities, we will not be able to house the 140,000 households in the state who are housing burdened. Unlike many other areas of life where the federal government plays a big role, here in Connecticut, we have 100% control over zoning. And the cost of meaningful changes are almost nothing. How do we do this? Towns Take the Lead ensures that municipalities are doing their own planning and zoning, but provide some additional structures to make sure we are all working together to create homes state residents need at prices they can afford. Here are four simple steps. Step one, as with anything you want to do, you set a goal. So we will set a goal with Towns Take the Lead and ask municipalities to take on a portion of that goal and do their planning with that in mind. Step two, within a year, change zoning to match up with the plan. We don't want it to be a plan that just sits on a shelf. Step three, towns and regions that are doing the right thing are rewarded with priority for certain state discretionary funding and technical assistance. Step four, we want legislators to at least consider enforcement. And the reason is that what towns are being asked to do is relatively low. They just have to make a plan, change their zoning. Or they can say why they can't. They can say why they can't meet that goal. So the ask is actually relatively low, and we want to make sure it happens. There are four thoughts I want to leave you with about Towns Take the Lead. First, with this proposal, how to plan and how to zone for housing. The housing we need is in the hands of municipalities. They really do take the lead. Two, this proposal will create housing in Connecticut that we have needed for decades, supporting residents throughout the state. Three, Towns Take the Lead will be good for the environment and encourage transit-oriented development as municipalities work to reach their unit goals most efficiently. And four, Towns Take the Lead will bolster Connecticut's economy. We have 77,000 jobs that are vacant. And one of the primary reasons these jobs are unfilled is because housing is so unaffordable in our state. Towns Take the Lead. It's going to be good for towns. It's going to be good for residents, our environment, and Connecticut. So that's our first proposal. We're going to hear more about three other proposals a little later. Collateral consequences of criminal records and housing applications, just cause eviction, and homelessness response. But before that, we're going to talk about how we can support families.
Hi, good morning. My name is Emily Byrne. I'm with Connecticut Voices for Children. I'm very pleased to be here this morning among these tireless advocates who are working together to advance policies that will help Connecticut grow. As we're hearing, and what we'll hear more of this morning, is that there are multiple problems and multiple solutions to tackling housing affordability. We need development, especially deeply affordable homes. We need land use and zoning reform to build those homes in every town across our state. We need protections to keep families in their homes. And we need services to support residents when they find themselves without a permanent home. A lot of this is about the bricks and mortar. However, another root cause of the housing affordability crisis is our state's growing income and wealth inequality. Connecticut residents need more money in their pockets, full stop. So we're going to talk about money, particularly two policies. One is smoothing the benefits cliffs to protect low-income families from losing the supportive benefits that they rely on. And the second is boosting cash assistance through the creation of a state-level child tax credit. So first on benefits cliffs. While our goal is for every resident who can work to be able to hold a good, well-paying job. Too many workers are paid too little and need additional help. Whether that's financial assistance for food or shelter or another necessity, for the 25% of Connecticut residents and 28% of children living near or in poverty, public benefits are a lifeline. One way to think about this, or one way to think about poverty, is that it's like a maze in that there are many ways to enter, but not only a handful of ways to exit. The way that our benefits cliffs are structured means that even earning $1 more can push families into an income bracket that disqualifies them for the benefits that support the upward economic mobility we desire for everyone. So smoothing these benefits cliffs will provide a cushion for hardworking families and potentially a pathway to exit the poverty maze, which is why we're supporting this policy this legislative session. But cash is king, cash and cash equivalents. That's why we at Connecticut Voices for Children have been championing a state-level child tax credit for 5 years, and we are thrilled that the Growing Together Coalition is including it among the priorities this year. Too many families need help moving out of poverty, and countless others are struggling to keep up with the lingering inflation nationwide, to say nothing of what new and excessive tariffs as well as federal budget cuts will do to the cost of living in Connecticut. A permanent, refundable state-level child tax credit would provide direct financial relief for Connecticut families, easing the high and growing cost of raising children, strengthening families' financial security, and building a stronger economy for everyone. And with that, I think we're turning it over to Kirk.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you so much, Aaron, for those remarks about those legislative policies. And as we await to hear about keeping homes, we are going to hear from someone who has some lived experience around housing issues, and that can really tie all this into a knot based on her lived experience. So with that, we're going to bring up Antoinette who will speak a bit about her experience with housing instability over the past few years. Antoinette?
Great rising, everyone. My name is Antoinette Humes. I have lived in New Haven for most of my life. I am the mother of 3 adult children and a 10th grade son. I am a member of Mothers and Others for Justice, New Haven Rising, and I'm here today to support the legislative agenda for Growing Together Connecticut. My son and I spent the last 8 weeks in Triage Center in New Haven, a warming center as a last resort for families and individuals who would otherwise be on the streets. The center's hours are from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. Imagine the families, some of who've had infants having to leave and go out into the single-digit temperatures of last week's, I'm sorry, I'm really emotional.
You're good.
Imagine seeing families who have infant kids that have to go outside in freezing temperatures with their infant children because they don't have enough hours or workers at the triage centers. We were relieved when the temperatures were so low that we were permitted to stay by a government-issued statement. This was a large open warehouse space divided by cots. Bathroom time was limited and often there was no food. Additional funds are desperately needed to keep these facilities open for longer hours. Thankfully, I am in a better situation, but not the one I want to be in. Me and my son are now living at New Reach, Life Havens Women's Center on Favorite Street in New Haven. My housing story started in 2000, living in New Haven Public Housing Authority. I was forced to leave Eastview Terrace as they were renovating. I had signed documentation that I could return. That did not happen. The next 2 Housing Authority apartments had a sewage backup and flooding that destroyed all my possessions. But most importantly, the only picture I had of my mother and me together. I then moved into Christian Community Action Hillside Emergency Family Shelter. It was the best apartment that I ever had. I was there for 2 years. I was able to rest, save money, and focus on my children and work. CCA helped me find a wonderful 3-bedroom apartment. The rent was $1,350, and I did not have any housing subsidies. I paid out of pocket. I have always been a hard worker. I have my CDL Class A's and a Department Developmental Service Certificate and a few other certificates. I've worked in New Haven group homes with young men. I fell in love with some of my clients while working at the PCA through Hartford Healthcare. Unfortunately, I was never able to get enough consistent hours to keep up with my bills. And so I had to leave my apartment in order to not get eviction. And so I want to support the Just Cause bill, knowing that an eviction impacts your ability to rent another place. Connecticut needs more deeply affordable housing, but we also need to help people get the job skills they need to get better paying jobs. We need to pass the benefits cliff bill so that for those of us that receive government benefits do not have our benefits reduced every time we earn more money. Now that my housing is more stable, I will use my CDL license to apply for a CT transit position. Hopefully they're watching. I hope to get a 9-to-5 job, consistent hours, and be able to be more involved with my community. Last but not least, I would like to just thank a few agencies and people. New Reach of New Haven Rising, New Reach, the triage at 209 Terminal Lane in New Haven, Connecticut, the staff there, Clifford Beers, Jasmine Mater, and Janicia Vidal. And I would also like to thank my ex-landlord, Mr. William Santillo, who was very kind to me while my stay was at 50 Lawrence Street. That was the closest I ever was able to live in downtown New Haven, which I really would like to do one day. And I just would like to tell him thank you so much for being so kind. Last but not least, I would like to thank a retired doctor by the name of Myron Janelle. Thank you for your long talks, your encouragements, and I miss you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Antoinette, so much for sharing such a powerful story and really sharing why it's so important for us to have more housing options here in Connecticut. And we know that starts with planning and zoning, and that's why it's important that towns take the lead, as highlighted as well. We're going to share some space for our elected officials who came here today to be a part of this and to speak. We want to thank those who came here, especially Rep. Rojas, Rep. Felipe, Rep. Garraby, Rep. Sweet, and also Rep. Hefferman. And we also want to thank Senator Rotman for being with us today. And we're going to bring up our House Majority Leader, Rep. Jason Rojas, to come and share some words with us. Rep. Rojas.
Thank you and good morning. I want to thank Antoinette for sharing her personal experience in this. It's obviously important to have legislators here, but perhaps even more important are the other 30 or 35 people who are behind us, who are the people, right? And we always talk about this building being the people's house, and it's why it's so important for individuals who are standing with us and behind us to be here to share the stories that they experience, because it's a way to humanize what often gets presented as a very abstract, disconnected issue here in this building, which is housing. And I think it gets disconnected because for those of us who are stable in our housing, I think it's really easy to take for granted exactly what it is that far too many people in the state of Connecticut are going through. I'm stable in my housing, but I have chosen to really be intentional about thinking about the lived experiences of people all over the state, not just in East Hartford and Manchester or Hartford, but across the state of Connecticut, who are housing insecure, who are housing cost burdened, and the worst of it, who are homeless and struggling to find safe and adequate shelter. You know, housing is one of the most basic of needs, right? It's up there with food and clothing and human connections, but it's also central and core to the stability of individuals. It's core to the stability of families. It's core to the stability of communities, and that funnels right up to the stability of the state. And I've been here for a very long time. It's my 17th legislative session. I've been focused on housing for over a decade now. And I really unfortunately, have to appreciate that we've reached a crisis, and now there seems to be a lot of growing interest on the topic of housing. And we can still do something, but we need to do a lot more for the 10 to 15 or 20 years of inaction that have come out of this building on the question of housing. There's certainly a lot of discussion this year about cost and affordability. And we're focused on lots of issues that are drivers of cost and affordability here in Connecticut: food, electricity. We talk about taxes, and certainly those are all things that we can control for the most part, but there are also some things that we cannot control. But one of the things that we can control is what we do about housing policy. There are some things that we can do that are lower cost. Nothing is ever free, but certainly isn't going to require the tens of millions of hundreds of millions of dollars that it takes to accomplish a lot of other these things, or building a power plant to generate more energy or to produce more food locally. But on housing, towns have the power and the authority to do something about it, and it should be a partnership with the state. There's a lot of discussion in this building about local control and making sure towns maintain that control, and I agree with that, right, to a point, though, right? We cannot be absolutist about this because right now, local control is the status quo, and the status quo is that we are one of the most constrained housing markets in the country. We have some of the most expensive housing to buy and or rent, so clearly something needs to change on that, and that's why we need to find opportunities and find ways to partner with towns and cities who I do believe want to come to the table and do something about this. They're going to need a partnership with the state. They're going to need resources. We are investing $800 million in housing, but I'm beginning to question, what are we getting for that $800 million? Are we producing enough units? Are we doing what we can to get more bang for that buck, knowing that we're not going to always be able to invest $800 million in housing a year? But if we allow local zoning regulation and local zoning burdens to be relaxed a little bit, I tend to think that we'll get a bit more housing out of that $800 million, and in particular, get more housing that is affordable and that is deeply affordable, because my biggest concern today are those who are most at risk of being homeless and our most vulnerable families, but even more than that, 10 years from now. I'm concerned about what's going to happen to the most vulnerable among us if we don't do something today. So I really appreciate all the partners that are here, all the advocates that are here, all the people that are here to lend their power to this process and try to really make movement on advancing a just housing policy, this legislative agenda session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Rojas, and thank you so much for your commitment to creating more affordable housing options across the state. Next, we're going to bring up the House Committee Co-Chair, Representative Antonio Felipe, my good friend and brother. Come on up.
Good morning. I want to first put on my hat as chair of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus and talk about the fact that we need to be doing more for working families here in Connecticut and making sure that stories like the one Antoinette told are not as common as they are today, because they are very common at the moment. And it's a reason why myself, along with Representative Kate Farrar, gathered 65 plus other legislators to make sure that we are trying to have a permanent refundable child tax credit here in the state of Connecticut to help those families. But I'll tell you one thing, there's 120 more reps and senators that you can talk to about that. And I implore you to reach out to them, because it's important for us to hear those stories, hearing what's going on in people's lives. I'm tired of people going issue by issue. What's going on with you in terms of your housing, your transportation? No, what's going on in your life? What is going on with you raising your family, raising your children? What's going on? What are the barriers that you face every single day? Because if we don't know those things, we're not serving our constituents the way that we are supposed to. But I'm going to switch now to my housing hat and just say one thing. I've said a couple of times, I believe that housing is a human right, and I do. But I'm going to switch it a little bit and say, I know that housing is a human right. Housing is something that should be available to everybody. And year after year, we have solutions that help across the board. I believe in local control too. I don't believe in local constraint. When localities come and municipalities decide that they're going to zone in a certain way that keeps certain people out of their neighborhoods, people deserve to live wherever they want to live. As long as they can afford it, as long as it can be in a way that they can raise their families comfortably, they deserve to live there. And every year we have solutions, right? They're calling one of these towns Take the Lead, and that's a nice way to put it. Do your part is what I'm going to ask. Do what you were supposed to be doing and make sure that people can live comfortably in your communities. Because if you exclude people, or I know in my city of Bridgeport, we have a lot of homeless folks that come from the suburbs. And if it was up to me, to be honest with you, I would tax you for that. I would say, hey, pay my city of Bridgeport for taking care of these people, because we will never turn somebody away. But unfortunately, there are towns that are doing just that. Or arresting people for sleeping outside because the Supreme Court said it's okay to do that. Or people getting evicted in droves from homes just because somebody's trying to make a quick buck. I'll tell you what, when I'm balancing the scale of people going through intense homelessness and insecurity, I never would imagine that my wallet would weigh it down on the other side. Matter of fact, that scale is broken. That scale is immensely broken. And it's going to take all of us to live together to make sure that we're making sure that that side of the scale is upright, those people have dignity, and those people have a place to live. So I'm not going to go through every single one. I'm just going to say this all together, right? Housing is an issue where it's like a water balloon attached to a fire hose with 8 holes in it. You're trying to plug the hole while also building some way to catch all the water when it pops. This is how you do it. This is not all of how you do it, but this is a lot of how you do it. And we got to get it done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Representative Felipe, for those powerful words. Next, we're going to have Senate Chair of the Planning and Development Committee, Senator Rotman. Senator Rotman? Yes. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm here same reason you are. We are all continue coming back over and over. Why we are here? We are here to help our community, supporting our homeless populations, continue growing the homeless population. Let me start with this. There is extreme wealth, there is extreme poverty. Homeless exist because billionaire like Elon Musk exist. Homeless exist. Look at $300 billion he spent for election. not $1 million donate for homeless community population to help bring people steam cold weather from outside to inside. So let's do this. We can talk over and over. We need the housing. Only way we can have and create more housing we can have without our town and cities support. Talk to with your local elected officials, mayor, city council members. Say we need it more than ever. We should lead the nation. We should not behind. We are way behind than so many other states. Tell them, you are the boss. Next election, I'm not going to forget. If I don't have what I'm looking for, I'm not looking, all you're looking for to survive, not to become a wealthy and rich. If they can support you, shelter, food on the tables, healthcare, this basic need, any human to survive. If they can help you, you know what you need to do next. So thank you for being here. We'll do anything we can. We'll fight for your health, safety, and your future. Make sure you have a place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. And we really, really appreciate everyone coming out, especially all the legislators that come on out and share those powerful words. And we appreciate you being advocates and partners with us as we look to move this agenda forward. And as we said, we were going to mention our topic of keeping homes. And keeping home includes just cause eviction, homelessness response system, and collateral consequences. And I'm going to put Lucas on the spot real quick and see if you want to come real quick and talk about just cause if you can. Just very quickly, Lucas. This is extemporaneously, so thank you.
My name is Luke Milanakis Harrison, Vice President of the Connecticut Tenants Union, and we are pushing for just cause eviction protection this session because no one should lose their home without a reason. In the state right now, some renters are protected from what's called no-cause eviction, folks who are over 62 and disabled in larger buildings. The state has an opportunity to expand that protection to a lot more people this year, and it couldn't be more timely. As Representative Felipe mentioned, we're seeing this trend of mass clearouts of tenants, often by out-of-state investors who are speculating on being able to raise the rent dramatically if they can get rid of everybody who currently lives there. And no-fault evictions make that really easy to do, which makes the skyrocketing price of rent harder for everyone, and also exacerbates our homelessness problem by, making it easy for these out-of-state investors to make our Connecticut residents homeless and thrust into housing instability suddenly. Just Cause will also protect tenants' rights to organize and form tenant unions and report housing code issues like the ones that Antoinette mentioned, without fear of intimidation and retaliation because they're just trying to cling to the roof over their head and feel forced to tolerate unsafe and unhealthy conditions in order to do so. Just Cause will give tenants more leverage to negotiate their rent increase at the end of their lease and not be forced to accept something absolutely ridiculous and unaffordable. So this is a vital tenant protection policy that will help preserve existing affordable housing, strengthen tenants' rights to organize and participate in the democratic process without fear of reprisal, and will slow down the skyrocketing cost of rent, which is something that the whole state will dramatically benefit from. So we're happy to be standing in coalition today, and as the Connecticut Tenants Union, pushing for the tenants' rights aspect of this, as tenants are the ones who are really bearing the brunt of the housing crisis most acutely in our state right now. Thanks for the impromptu opportunity at the mic. And thanks to Growing Together for hosting this session.
Thank you so much, Lucas. This is how you know Lucas has been really talking about this for a long time, because he did that with no forewarning. So thank you, Lucas. Thank you for being flexible. Are there any questions? No, I'm sorry.
I'm taking a little bit of a liberty. I forgot to mention one thing, but I want to say it in every single press conference we have. There's a 30% increase in 1 year raise in rent 13% increase in homelessness. I just want people to know those numbers. And if you tell me that they're not conflated, I don't want to hear anything else you have to say.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions for anyone who has spoken today, or anyone or our state legislators? Are there any questions?
Yeah, for the lawmakers and there's been a lot of discussion about how that's an issue. Can you kind of speak to that and which issue?
Are you talking Town State the Lead specifically?
Yes.
For that one, I think it's important to know that they're giving the opportunity for people to make their own plans. Right? You make your own plan, you stick to it, you have a year to figure out how you're going to zone for it, and there's a mechanism as well for you to tell people why that might not be possible. It's a little bit more permissive, but it still puts you in a position where you have to do something, because we need people to. We're in a crisis right now.
You know, I would add it. I mean, it's politically difficult because people make it so. I think there's a pretty good disconnect between the rhetoric that we often hear coming out of this building and, quite honestly, from my colleagues across the aisle. Just looking at messaging that's gone out this past weekend about work, live, ride that is being heard today in planning development, using language that is just not accurate and inconsistent, and it's done intentionally. I think it's done to raise the concerns of people who live in our communities about what it is what we are intending to do legislatively. So it's political because people are choosing to make it, and I think it's fairly irresponsible to continue to do that, because it's also disconnected from a lot of the polling data that we have, that there are a lot of people who are concerned about the cost of housing. There are a lot of people who would like to see the state be more assertive in its authority to try to make changes around zoning and housing policy. So it's really a question you should be asking for some other people who continue to be obstacles to us making progress on this issue.
I won't say those are fighting words, but they're strong words. Strong words, strong words. Any other questions for legislators or leaders up here for various policy proposals?
Aaron, could you speak a little bit more to how you envision these policies sort of working in conjunction with each other?
Well, there's an arc here. We have immediate needs. We have homelessness. We have people being evicted for no good reason, and we need to provide solutions for families and individuals right now so that we keep a roof over people's heads. But we also need long-term solutions. So we need to make sure that we are, in fact, changing those zoning policies so that more housing is built. We need to make sure families don't get kicked off of benefits and they can stay in their homes. And some of those are, short-term, and some of those are long-term. So I think that's one connection. Another connection is part of the reason that we're feeling the homelessness crunch and all the evictions that we're seeing right now is because tenants don't have any place to go, right? If you have an issue with your landlord, it's hard to find another place to go and just walk away. And that's because we don't have enough housing. So there's a thread that runs through all of this, and if we can do all of these things together, we're going to be so much stronger and have so much more success, and a situation where families and kids can reach their promise for generations to come.
I'm going to piggyback off of that, just because I know we need to waste a little time. I'll hold it. So if you look at this, right? You look at collateral consequences. That's more people being able to be renters. That puts more money in landlords' pockets. That makes it a little bit easier for them to not put somebody through a no-cause eviction, which is why we need just cause. If we have towns take the lead, there will be more places for people to live, more places for those renters and those landlords to take advantage of that. Thank you. But at the same time, people are in this position because they become homeless because they don't have the time or the money to pay the rent. Child tax credit, that puts you in a really good position, especially if you're one of these parents that works 40 hours a week and is sleeping in a car with your children. And the benefits cliff, same thing. The more money we put in people's pockets, the more they have to spend on our economy, the more tax dollars we have to give more programs. It works together very easily.
Thank you. Thank you so much for breaking that down, Rep. Felipe. And we like to think of it as like a house, right? There are different layers and levels to a house. There's a foundation, there's sides, and there's a roof. And all of this works together to make sure we all have a home and we all have places that we can rest our heads at night. Are there any other questions out in the audience? Don't let Jenny take them on.
We're okay, Sheila. Her questions are always good.
All right. Well, I think if that is all, we are going to wrap up. So thank you all so much for your time, attention, and thank you for being here today. Appreciate you all.